Well, Sophia, we had you on Farm Advice podcast. Now we've got you in the seat for a good farm yarn. So welcome to Farm Yarns.
Oh, thank you, Jack. It's wonderful to be here.
That's about business and a little bit more about you. But before we get started, let's just check in. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I had an awful flu last week and I'm back in the saddle. Sort of it's wonderful when you come out of a bad flu. You just get a little bounce in your step. So I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you going?
Pretty rampant actually. It's pretty busy on farm. This is our quiet period after getting all the sheep work done. It just sort of hasn't tapered off at all. So it's good to have you on, and also I appreciate your time. It's past 6 o'clock now, but going well. And these sort of episodes inspire me to keep going for the next day and the next episode. It sort of rolls on for that for my next morning. And talking of mornings, what's your morning routine?
Yeah, look, I'm not a morning person. I'm unashamedly not a morning person. So the gig at home is I do the evenings with the kids and hubby gets up in the morning and
Yep.
brings me a cup of tea. And then I normally get up, get the dishwasher going, washing on, and then have a little bit of a think about what's on for the day.
Yep.
I tend to finish the day with writing down the top three things I need to do the next day.
Yep.
You know, when I wake up in the morning, I'm just not one of those people who goes, oh yeah, those are the three things I have to do today. So I'll have a little look and go, yep, got it. And then I'll probably just spend about 20 minutes or half an hour having a think about, that and getting on with it, starting the day. Bit of coffee normally is wonderful. And then at the desk, 8:30 and into it.
Beautiful. It's very brave of you to say you're not a morning person, because it's sort of everyone puffs their chests out, even if they don't wake up early in the morning.
Oh, I'm just, once I get going, I'm fab, but I just, not. And I was a little bit nervous about admitting that on this podcast, I've got to say, because I know that in our industry, you almost have to be a morning person to be successful. So, was a little nervous about that, but I thought better be honest.
This will be going out in the morning at 5 a.m. So the morning early birds will be hearing you anyway. But for yourself, in 30, 60 seconds, what's your favourite memory on farm? Were you on farm in South Africa?
No, I wasn't. I've spent most of my time on farms, been here in Australia, and it was actually getting up really early at 5 and joining a team on one of the NAPCO properties for breakfast. And it was a beautiful sunrise and it was a cold, crisp day. And just that real sense of everyone sitting around the kitchen table sharing, eggs and bacon and getting on with, the day. And it's beautiful in the mornings on property. It's different to being, in the city and getting up. And I think of that very, very fondly.
It's a good one. I like just thinking now and how our family did our mornings, and then I'd go stay over at a mate's. This is back in the day out with Kenya. Stay at them and like go mustering in the morning, just how they operate a bit differently. I'm older now, so I can reflect. And then a mate up in Queensland, it's just it's cool to have an insight into what families do and operate, and always sort of look outside your own sort of square. And hopefully this episode podcast does that for people as well.
Yeah, you're right. You always pick up something when
Yeah.
you chat, when you stay with other people. You always go, oh, I like the way they did that, or oh, actually that didn't work for me, or whatever. Yeah, right.
I say that just as it's raining now, we're looking for a job, which is good. But for yourself, who's been the most influential person for you along your journey?
Yeah, it's my mum. My mum was a professional banker, probably in a time when, you had to choose. You had to choose whether you were mum or you were, a career.
Yep.
And, I've a very strong belief that if you can see it, you can be it. And I think, I've, growing up, mum wasn't, at home as much as probably, friends' mums were, but, I often reflect in my career on all the things I picked up just through osmosis. And so, mum's been the most influential person in my life, and continues to give me a bit of a kick along when I need one, which is great.
That's a good one. And it's probably a good example of like the Matildas. If you see it, you can believe it. For that, whether it's within sporting or even career wise as well, I think that's opened up a lot of younger ladies throughout Australia, and also for the World Cup worldwide too, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you see it, it's not so scary. You know, it's like, oh yeah, oh well, she does that, or he does that, and oh well, dad cooks dinner, so I just cook dinner, or mum,
Yeah, yeah.
might mow the lawn, whatever. And I think in our sector there isn't we are very balanced, actually, much more than in other sectors.
Yeah.
And I think most families, everyone can do the same jobs, actually, whether you're mustering or it's pretty.
And it's a great way to be as well.
Absolutely.
And what's a myth you'd like to debunk about your line of work? Is there any myths out there that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that livestock finance is expensive. It's a myth because with the finance, our clients generally on a normal trade are generating $6 for every $1 they pay us. And without that finance, you probably can't fund the extra 300 head on property because the bank's pretty much full up. You've got that line of credit from the bank. The client's got a working capital and a loan for against the real estate, and there's just not quite enough money to fully stock and create that additional cash flow. Yeah. So I think that's a real myth. I think there is, we're seeing really progressive commercial clients access the funding and going, yeah, actually, I'll use my own working capital to fund that fencing or fund those waters, and I'll use your money to buy those cattle and get on with creating the extra cash flow.
Great, I love it. That's a good one. Always like debunking a myth, and with the different guests, they always change as well. But you covered this one before, night owl or early riser. But what sport do you follow instead in Australia? Do you follow?
Yeah, I do follow sport. My husband follows every sport you can imagine, so I tend to just tag along with whatever we're watching. Last night we watched the Matildas, which was fantastic. We watch heaps of rugby, cricket. My son's into tennis, so he plays a lot of tennis, and my daughter's a national swimmer. So, we had a wonderful run of watching the swimming that was on recently, and watching the girls that at our club and the guys that are at our club at SPW. So it was very actually dear to my heart because we're seeing those sportsmen and women train, and then how hard they train, and then how they're achieving. It's incredibly inspirational, particularly that swimming. Given we are dragging our daughter to swimming multiple times a week and off to meet. So swimming's probably the one that I follow the most, actually.
Well, that would get you out of bed, early risers for the training. They train pretty early.
Well, here we go. So this is the deal at home. Hubby, we talked about this. Hubby's doing the morning, so he does all that. And then I'm into it in the afternoons or the evenings, cooking all the food and picking her up from the afternoon session. So it's a good recognizing that's your strength, honey. You do the mornings and I'm doing the evenings. So yeah, she's got Buckley's chance if I'm having to take her to the pool at 5 a.m. Unfortunately, I do have to occasionally, but yeah, dad's a strong one in that area.
Great stuff and a good team. I haven't heard Buckley's chance in a while. So what's hot and what's not within finance, and maybe even the quick finance of what you supply?
Yeah, what's hot and what's not. What's hot is, exploring it. I think if you've got a question around, oh, can that work for us? Or how does that actually work? Pick up the phone, have a chat to us. We'd love to talk about what you're looking for, and how we can help. What's not, I've
got a what's not.
What's not? Tell me.
The sheep and lamb market at the moment.
Oh, mate, it's just,
and how quick it drops. Like it rises quite steadily over time and then whack.
Yeah, it's come off really, really quickly. Yeah, you're right, it's not hot.
But also it's allowed for opportunists, I suppose, with the cheaper sheep getting about to fatten up. So it may play in favour for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Something you think we need to be talking about that's not out there in the media, and sort of flies under the radar?
Yeah, I think, I think what real life is, I think is something that I think doesn't really get talked about much. I think people have an idea, young people have an idea about what normal life is, working running a home, we've got all these, ideas about life that come off social media, it's perfect. It's not, normal life is you argue with your partner occasionally, the kids give you a few headaches, that's just normal life, and I think talking realistically about what normal life is, whether that's, a young mum who's just had a baby and say, oh, gee, when I had my first child, I was totally overwhelmed. You just see the relief, in people's faces, or, gee, I'm also having a bit of a tough job with that, a tough run with that sheep job at the moment. People you can just see the relief. And I think we live a little bit in this world where everything looks perfect, and it's just not real life. And I think it creates mental health issues because, it's like, oh, well, they don't seem to be having a problem with that. Well, actually, everyone's got problems. That's normal life, right? Everyone's got a few ups and downs. So I think a bit more just real talking, sharing a few problems over a cuppa, and then the other person goes, oh, yeah, me too. Or, oh, what do you reckon I do about this? I think just sharing real life and talking honestly, rather than social media perfect,
This is why Farm Yarns was sort of born, because people didn't know how people acted about different decisions or like what their life experiences were. They hear about the agribusiness, the farm or whatnot on Farms of Ice. And I think it's great to hear like how you're motivated and what challenges you. I actually, like when I left uni, I went into a marketing role, and I don't know, a couple of months in, I was like, shit, this is really manual work. Like when you just look at a marketing role, you're like, oh, social media, lights, camera, action. Yeah, it was draining. And then I went to London for a few years, and yep, same thing, quite manual. But that's just what happens to get the job done, and everything from the household, as you said before, just to sort of keep everything sort of ticking along. You got to put the effort in if you want something out of it.
Yeah, 100%, and I think, it is a bit difficult sometimes to say, oh, tell me what that's really like, but I think, if we can talk openly in our communities, I think we'd have less people going, oh, I feel really disappointed, because you get disappointed when your expectation is not real. And I think if you knew, oh, yeah, okay, what's mustering like? Anyone who's mustered will tell you exactly what it's like. But somebody who sees it on social media will go, oh, look at that. Look at the beautiful sunset. And, people might have been up from 4:30 in the morning and had a, 16-hour day and just, haven't had a single thing to eat all day.
Yeah.
Like that's what it might be really like. But, somebody goes, oh, I was really disappointed. I went out mustering and I thought it was blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, did you actually ask the question that helped you really understand? And so, yeah, I think if we can talk openly on whatever it is, whether it's having kids or, being in a relationship or going overseas, there would have been amazing things about going overseas, but you also left home and that was probably quite difficult, so, all sorts of things like that. I think I don't think that gets enough conversation in the media, just real conversation, like having real conversations and, doing that. So, yeah.
It'd be tough to top that response. I think that was a really good one. We had a mental health report come out, and it was pretty shocking on the terms of farmers and producers and everything. But we want to know how different people look after themselves, take the time out within the finance game, being a women within finance. You're not the majority anyway. How do you take time for yourself to look after you, to make sure that you can bounce back and hit the notes that next day?
Yeah, look, I think for me, there's a couple of things or a few things there. I think getting a bit of exercise, that helps, 3-4 times a week, whatever it is. I like skipping and walking. I do a bit of skipping and walking. I think the other one is, sharing your problems. Like a problem. What is it? A problem shared is a problem halved or something. It's like pick up the phone and go, oh, mum, or just a mate, like I'm worried about this. Once you talk about something, you usually feel a bit better. I think having things to look forward to is a big one, like, oh, okay, I love that restaurant, but, probably haven't been there in 3 months. Okay, in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to, organise that. And you have that to look forward to. Really, it makes you feel good, or, oh, okay, well, I haven't, gotten into town for whatever for ages, but when I go in to get, talking to Abby, who works in our business, going to town, I'm going to meet so-and-so for a drink. Yeah, it's exciting. You've got something to look forward to. I think that day-to-day grind of getting up and doing the same thing, I think, having things to look forward to. And also, if you have a bad day, you have a bit of a shit day. Like, not every day is going to be good. So I think also kind of being kind to yourself when you have a bit of a bad day, you're like, yeah, it was a bad day, or a not as good day. Somebody told me the other day, don't call it a bad day. I said, oh, it wasn't as good a day. You go, it can't always be good. Again, going back to the mental health thing we're talking about, not every day is going to be, amazing. It can't be. It's not real life. Going back to, that point, you have a great day. Not every day is going to be great, right? That's just not realistic. Yeah.
That's a good point. When I was over in London, we sort of needed everything each quarter, even something each month to look forward to, because just the winters were pretty unbearable as an Aussie going over there.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's not that it was really cold, it's that it was like could be up to 8-10 months of just hell.
Yeah, I think having things to look forward to is a big one.
Yeah.
Just whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, like going walking, hiking, whatever, catching up with mates, just having those things in the diary and actually going, yeah, I actually deserve that. I'm going to put that in the diary because that is important to me and it actually makes me feel good.
And what are you most excited about in 2023? What's a project, either business, personal, or family-wise? What's something you're working towards? What is that goal, actually? That probably rolls in quite well.
Yeah, I came away from Christmas. Both my parents turned 70 this year, and because I'm a migrant, and COVID and a whole lot of things. Dad lives in the US and mum lives in South Africa, and I realized I hadn't seen either of them in recent times. And I went, you know what? That's the single most important thing I can do this year. And I recently went away, and caught up with my folks, and I feel sort of super happy going back to that, that stuff that really matters. I think sometimes we lose focus on the big picture. It was like, gee, I haven't seen my dad in that many years. I haven't seen mum in, and so just, stepping back, like we were talking about on Farms Advice, stepping back, planning. It's like, okay, it was quiet at Christmas. Like, what must I do this year? What's super important? And going, yep, I'm going, and chatting to Richard and saying, hey, this is super important to me. What do you reckon? He was like, yeah, do it. Absolutely. And so, I feel like I've sort of ticked a really big box this year and catching up with family. So yeah, the rest of the year, just keep on kicking goals, writing, focusing on our clients, writing, loans for them, helping them, achieve what they need to achieve in their businesses, and just maintaining the focus on the client. Like, what does the client need? What's the solution we can provide to help the client? I think that's what we're here for. And I think when we keep focused on the client, we can have a good outcome in the business. So that's the other big goal. And the family, just keeping things ticking at home. I've got 2 athletes at home. They just, gosh, they're teenagers. My God, they can eat, those 2 kids. And they just keep churning out the pastas and the lamb roasts and the, scrambled eggs and avocado on toast and whatever else you can dream up. They'll eat it.
Good. Just going back, without scaring you too much, I think it was a talker or a comedian or something put it into, or quite physically, of like, he asked how many times do you see your parents a year, and the person said 4, and then how old are they? So on average, like they're going to pass away at 86 on average, and like they said, yeah, you've only got 10 or 20 times to see your parents again if you keep seeing them at the same rate. And that's a pretty shocking sort of number to be confronted with, and puts you in your seat and probably to go see your parents a bit more, or any family member for that fact.
Yeah, it's very sobering, when you said, oh, not to shock you, but it is, I think when you stop and think, it's the same as kids. Our daughter is coming on 15, and, I left home at 18. I went off to study and I traveled. I was an exchange student, and I never lived at home really after 18. So she's, in theory, she could be gone in 3-4 years. And, so it goes both ways. It's your folks, but it's also, raising kids is pretty full on, and it doesn't stop. And then you hear people say, and then you one day you wake up and they're gone, and just trying to be present in that. And but yeah, you're right. When you do stop, you just go, oh wow, and it's whether it's parents or kids, it can be very sobering to think about it. Yeah.
What's something you think the audience may not know about you?
I'll give you a bit of a giggle, because often when I say this, people do go, oh. So I'm actually Greek. I'm Greek descent, married to an Italian. Born in South Africa, living in Australia. So I'm a bit of a citizen of the world. And I love Australia. Like, it's just it's home for me. And yeah, my mum was born in north of Africa, my dad in Mozambique. And so I feel like I can, meet lots of different people and interact with them and find something in common.
That's pretty cool. Like my partner's Spanish.
Oh yeah.
And that gives me a good holiday to go over to Spain.
Perfect.
Spanish farmers do it. She's actually over there now at the moment. Left me behind on farm, but I'll go meet her later on.
Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful. So you got a bit of European in your home. I hope you get to have some good tapas or something, married to a Spaniard, or partnered up with a Spaniard rather.
Yeah, she's a good cook as well, and all the Spanish sort of food. They love their food, and like they're pretty centered around the family table, which is quite cool. Like her family, during COVID, I was over there and got kicked back, but there was a 10-month delay, so I was just I'd lay the table for each lunchtime. The family would come home. This is during work, and then they'd split and go back to work after their little siesta if they had one or not. It's a different world, but they're traditional. Like that's been going on for years.
Did you get a bit of red wine at lunch with your
red wine at lunch? And like the sun, I picture it as like our Sunday lunch, maybe, or even like our Easter lunches, and that's what I felt like I was prepping it every day.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We eat pretty European at home, and there's always dinner and brekkie around the kitchen table, and somebody has to set the table. And it's good if you eat well, isn't it? It's always good if you eat well.
I'll have to come over one day. The Greek food's pretty nice, I reckon.
Please, you're welcome. Welcome, you're absolutely welcome. Yeah, we'd be delighted. Get the kids cooking you some gnocchi. My daughter's a bit of a gnocchi maker, and so we'll be absolutely welcome, Jack.
What's your best productivity hack? Is it doing something, or is it removing something? Like, it's always different for people.
Yeah. My latest one, actually, this is a bit of a new one, is working to 90%. So instead of working to 100 or 120, or when you finish the day and you've just basically there's nothing left in the tank, and you do that every day for a week straight or 2 weeks or a month, there's something really different about working to 90% each day.
Is that like to leave 10% back at the household?
Yeah. Well, no, just leave 10% in your tank. Like, so, instead of like working every day till you fall over, whether that's doing that extra load of laundry or finishing that extra set of accounts, or, doing an additional task on property or whatever, is just don't finish each day with nothing in the tank. It's the proverbial tank, it's kind of like, it's just, don't go to bed with nothing in the tank every day, because there seems to be like a cumulative effect of it. It's almost like, if you go to zero every time, it actually takes harder to get back to 100%. So just work to 90 and go, I think I've got a little bit of, I've just got a little bit, because that's a bad habit of mine. I'd kind of work until there's nothing left in the tank. And then you get that fatigue, and you're like, well, why am I so fatigued? And it's like, well, if you work until there's nothing left in the tank every day consistently, well, it's like running just running a motor till it fails every day, and then expecting it to start the next day when the engine has cooled down. Or I'm probably not giving the right technical mechanical example, but you know what I mean. It's just like, it's just like anything, right? So that's my latest one, and it's actually serving me very well at the moment. Yeah. quite enjoying it. I was not expecting it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. I think, oh, it sounds a bit, but it's actually working quite well for me. Yeah.
There might be a few people off the back of this episode take that away and even trial it to see how they go. For those closing in on burnout, it's hard to know when burnout is when you're a farmer because you have to get up, especially livestock.
Yeah.
I have that all too well. But if you weren't doing what you were doing, what would Sophia be doing? What would that be for you?
Yeah, I think it's less about the actual activity and it's more about the people. I think what's changed for me in the last sort of 5 years is, it's not technically what I'm doing every day. Like you sort of get to the stage. For me, I've gotten to the stage in my career where probably done, enough I've got technical capability in enough areas in my field of finance that I can probably figure it out if I don't know it, or I can consult with somebody who can help me work it out. But what makes, the job wonderful is the people, and I think if I wasn't working with Richard and Nick and Abby and others in our team, I'd want to find another team where, I could enjoy, the work because of the people, not because of the actual work. So I think it'd be about finding, somewhere where you can feel at home and feel like you're delivering good outcomes in whatever you're doing, and people are can do and, good to work with and figure it out. If you don't know what to do, you'll figure it out because you're a good group of people and you'll figure it out. So yeah, people.
That's a good one. I keep dropping London, but I will again. A job in London, and then like if my workmate wasn't there, it'd be a bit of a shit of a day because you just no one
Exactly.
to connect with, and everyone else you didn't. Oh, they were higher or they were further away from your project or something like that.
Yeah,
the day's so much easier.
so much easier. And if you have a bit of a not great one, or you're trying to figure something out, you can ring it feels like a mate. It is a mate. Ultimately, the people you work with, best outcomes is their mates as well. But early in my career, I wasn't really chasing that. I was chasing a lot of like good experience, quote unquote. Oh, I should do that job because I'll get good experience. Instead of, I think if, when I mentor, I do talk about that. I was like, do you feel like you can be yourself there? Do you feel like you're valued? You can, contribute in a way.
That's a good one. And to finish it off, I sort of started out, must have been at the beginning of this year now, the Farmers Book Club. You a bookworm? Do you read books?
Yeah, I do like a good book. Yeah, I do like a good book.
What's your number one recommendation you could give us?
Yeah, can I give you two?
Yep, please do.
I love The Sacred Cow. I think it's, it does talk a lot about, some of the ESG things that we read about in the paper. Some people have got very firm views about, what we're doing in our industry and what it means and what raising livestock might be doing to the planet, and I think that, provides a wonderful alternate view. My other favorite is The Barefoot Investor. I love The Barefoot Investor. I just think there's so many good, sensible ways to run your family finances and just go to bed at night not worrying, about money. I think money is a big one for mental health. Yes. And I love that idea of having, money saved for a rainy day, money saved for a holiday, money saved for day to day, and it just creates a wonderful peace of mind. So I'm a big Barefoot fan. Tend to give them away as gifts, those books. So yeah, those are my two top picks for you, Jack.
Very good recommendations, but this farm yarn, I think we could go on forever if I continued all the questions. And I've got here of myself and of others, but I think your responses were second to none, Sophia, and how you dealt with them. I think everyone gets something out of each and everything. Even like it's your role now, so you're escaping your role in the hub you had this morning. And appreciate you coming on later at night. It's good.
No, amazing. Thanks, Jack. It's been such a pleasure. I'm off to cook chicken stir fry, which has to go into the lunch boxes as well tomorrow. So I've got to figure out how to make it a double meal. So anyone who cooks knows what I'm talking about, hunting for extra vegetables to chuck it in. But Yeah, it's been wonderful chatting to you, Jack, and thanks for your really open questions. It really made me think, and it's a pleasure hearing about your own experiences as well.